You don't grow by just living for yourself. It just doesn't work that way. So the whole mindset that they have around this finding yourself is wrong from the get-go.
Welcome back to Psychobabble. I'm Hannah Spear, your anti-feminist psychiatrist, and we are going to expose more bad therapy and the liberal narratives that are making us sicker. And I hope you're enjoying your pre-holiday season. I know I am. We're making a lot of decorations. As you can see, if you're watching this, I am wearing my new medal made by the kids. And they're very excited. And I'm also excited because I'm almost at the 1 year mark of starting the Psychobabble podcast. And my first guest was Suzanne Venker, and she joins me again today, which I'm really excited about. Welcome, Suzanne.
I didn't realize that. Awesome. Congrats, Hannah. I just love what you're doing. It's so awesome. And it's unique. Very, very unique. You're not going to find a lot of Hannahs out there doing what you're doing and packaging it the way you packaged it. And there's just the whole branding piece to it. It's just awesome. Really great.
Thank you so much. And you are putting all your weight behind your Substack now. You guys have to go and check out Suzanne Venker's Substack. It's grown a lot. Do you want to say something about the Substack before we go on?
I mean, I'm still in the stages of, it's not like every Monday I do this. What I like about it is, right now my life's getting busier on the personal side. So I've just sort of found that it works really well with my lifestyle. And I'm learning more and more every week and just loving it. So I'm just, like you said, throwing my weight behind that. And so, come on over and check it out. It's just Suzanne Venker's Substack. That's all it's called.
They're really fabulous articles about marriage, about how to approach it, how to prepare for it. Since we're on that wasn't going to be my intro into the conversation, but there was one piece that I talked to a couple of friends about, female friends about. That was how you are going into marriage financially. You have joint finances.
Yes.
That was such an amazing, and we talked about it and we're like, right, everyone has separate account. And then my friend said, one of her friends, they were just getting a divorce. And she said she was surprised going through this divorce, how easy it was because everything was separate. Do you want to say something about that?
Oh, yeah.
First?
I cannot think of any topic right now that I'm not more passionate about, because I keep learning more and more and more how common and normal it has become to have separate finances. And it's not about just the math and the money of it, although it is, but also it's the mentality that young women in particular, and men are just sort of going with the ride, let's face it, they're going to do what the woman wants to do. If she says she wants separate finances, most of them will be like, okay, thinking that's helping her feel independent or what have you. It's kind of women driving the boat on this because they've been taught to be independent at all costs. And that's a very important piece of that, because when you get married, there's no such thing as being independent. You're moving into interdependency mode. It doesn't have to be dependency mode, which is what they are scared of because that's the hype. It's interdependency, where a man and a woman are dependent on each other and are putting all their eggs into a basket together to work as a team in every capacity. And when you're not doing that, you struggle more. It seems like you don't, because they think, well, in addition to, I can just keep my own money and do whatever I want with it, and he can do what he's going to do with it. We don't ever fight, right? It's easier. That's not actually, it feels easier in the moment because you're not actually addressing what you need to address to build both actual relational wealth and financial wealth. So you're just kind of being more like roommates, and you're thinking that it's easier because you're really just avoiding the hard conversations you need to have, which are a staple of any team marriage where you have joint finances. You're coming together regularly to hash out the biggest issues in your marriage, which are going to manifest through your finances. So if you're not sitting down together and doing that, you're not addressing the stuff in your marriage. You're just not.
Right. What
And
are
so,
some of that hard conversations that you've witnessed? Because Suzanne Venker is also a life coach. That's very important to if you didn't hear the previous conversation that we have, she's doing authoring books, and she's also a life coach. That's why her experience here is so valuable.
well, and it's relationship and life, and it tends to be more relationship, but although they go hand in hand. But the number one problem that I see is the reason why you're calling me is because you're struggling in your marriage, and not almost all of them have separate finances. I mean, you can just
Oh,
bank
really?
you can just bank
It's
on
that common.
and that's why at first I wasn't thinking about that when I started this, but it's become such a dominant theme. And it's about the mentality and the attitude and the mindset. It's about the marital mindset. If it's about how you think about marriage. If you are preparing for its demise, which has a lot to do with why you want to keep things separate, because it'll be easier, like you said, when this couple got divorced, they didn't have anything combined. So mentally, it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're going into it preparing for its demise, and you're setting it up in such a way that you probably will have that happen. So your mindset is crucial to be successful in a marriage. Crucial. The commitment concept, your view of marriage as a biblical, it's a biblical institution. That's the word I want, as opposed to a secular one. That's going to make a big difference. Because if you're hung up on the tit for tat and equality stuff, you do this, I do this, we got to have this, you're going to lose, you're going to fail, because it's not what marriage is.
Because I've given advice on this, just to friends, because we have everything joint, and what I say then is that there's this transparency that you have to sort of submit to. I think
Yes.
psychologically, for me, that's would be the most difficult thing in the beginning, to sort of know, if everything's joint, then there has to be absolute honesty and transparency. You cannot just go and buy whatever you want whenever you want, in secret. There are no secrets and I think that's from what I can tell, that's very difficult for people. What are your thoughts on what people find the most difficult?
That's a big piece of it. Then that gets into then it's not really a money question, it's a marital question, because why do you need to keep secrets? Why? I mean, if someone were to come to me with that and it manifests through their money, which it will, the money isn't the issue. The issue is, why are you feeling the need to keep secrets? So if you both have the same mindset about building financial and relational wealth, you want what's best for the team. So if you're struggling in that domain, it generally means that the marriage is not okay. Really not about the money. It's about what the money is representing and why you're walking through things the way you are. Like, let's say you wanted, like as a woman, you want to have your own. A lot of people will say this. They think that if you have combined finances, that you will never be able to spend freely, right? That he or she will know everything you're doing at every moment. And that's not what I'm.
Curb your enthusiasm.
Yeah. I mean, that's not how it works. It doesn't need to work that way. That's certainly not what I'm advocating. There are ways within a budget to create money in advance that you guys agree on. Hey, this is your money. You could do whatever with it. This is so that you have that sense of, if you want to say, agency or whatever. That's all important in a marriage, to be able to not have to account for every dime you spend. That's not what I'm arguing for. And that's not what combined finances is. Again, it's about your mindset, about what are you doing here? How are you going to build it? How are you going to get there? Let's agree on how we're going to get there. And then here's the plan for it. And if a lot of times spending is so much about our own mental health issues or our psychology. It's about the psychology of why we spend the way we do. And so often that leads into, we're not happy in our marriage, so we're spending secretly or in a way that makes me feel like I still have ownership in my life. Well, that will work for a while until your marriage blows up, because you're not dealing with the real issue there. You're just using money as a tool to put a salve on that underlying issue.
Right. It's just a sign that you're not working towards the same
Hmm.
goal.
Hmm.
That I do see a lot, that there's no
Hmm.
predefined goal. Like people should be talking about that on the second date. Like in the
Yeah,
Orthodox Jewish
yeah,
community,
right. I
they
know.
meet in the hotel lobby and they say, "How many kids do you want? How do you?"
You're
What are
laughing,
your?
but I'm
I
telling
think
you,
it's
I'm
amazing.
more. The more I see that, the more I'm like, yes, that's what people should be doing for sure.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, within reason, it is hard to. You can't really just be like, how many children do you want by the second date? But yeah, I mean, certainly in the first 6 dates, let's say that all this stuff should be covered. Because why go forward if you're not aligned in that way? And plus, I always say about dating, what are you doing if you're not talking about those things? Like, I always think it's really interesting. Like, when I go back to my dating life with my husband, or really just anybody I dated, in the early dates, you're talking about yourself, your upbringing, your
yeah.
likes, your dislikes, what you want for the future. Like, isn't that normal? And so this stuff
Mhm.
would organically come up in conversation, you would think. Oh, this is the way my parents
Yeah,
did it. I don't like it. There's little things you can say that you can that kind of get to something without actually laying it on the table.
what I do see with the women that I talk to, and that they're very afraid. They will not say what they want outright. They will hide that they really want a family of five. They'll hide. They're terrified of scaring away their date. There's a lot of fear there,
Well,
I've
what's
heard.
funny about that is you're actually going to get faster farther if you're just 100% honest, because if the person doesn't want that, bye,
Hmm.
sayonara, see you later, like moving on to the next one. I mean, that's good. Don't get
Yeah,
so deep into it with somebody that you're hiding something that big from, and then you're really
right.
going to have a complicated relationship. Just get it out, and if they don't want what you don't, just go to the next.
There's something that's been getting a lot of attention lately, and that is the dramatic effect lifestyle and exercise have on our well-being and mental health. But the difficult thing is to stick with the routine. So what you need to do is to go and check out Pitch Fitness Center. It's a premium wellness gym and it's gorgeous. It gives you that hotel spa feeling with every exercise. And their kids club is even open on Sunday. So head on over to pitch.ch, that's pitch.ch, and get a discount with our promo code Psychobabble podcast today. See you there. What I very often saw in the clinic, and I'm going to pose you this a hypothetical case, not so hypothetical, Suzanne.
Hmm.
That is,
Okay.
you know, let's say she's 31 woman. Um, she comes in, she has what would usually be diagnosed with a burnout. Don't like that diagnosis, but let's call it as everyone has some frame of reference around that diagnosis. She's fatigued, can't really concentrate, sleeps poorly, and she's not working that hard. And usually, in a bank or in some corporate structure, HR job, worked maybe 2 years, has a good degree, and the relationship is, maybe she has a boyfriend and he could go the family way, but she's worried, she doesn't know what she wants, and she doesn't know, should I wait, and she's told, to keep her independence and keep her identity, and having a family will have all these consequences for you. And so what would you advise her?
I would say that the one and only way to move forward, get what you want, and have a happy life is to start being 100% authentic and to forget about what you've been told. The very first question I ask people is, what do you want? What do you want? And you'd be surprised how, like, I don't think people really ask that question. It seems like such a simple and obvious question. And sometimes they don't know, or they do know, very often in your case, the example you gave, but they haven't verbalized it. And when you verbalize it, you put it on the table, sort of like, I'll have the steak or the chicken. You're naming
Hmm.
it. So the very first thing I say is, what do you want? Okay,
Hmm.
how are you going to get that? How are you going to go about that? Number one, authenticity, complete honesty. Forget about what's PC, politically correct. Forget about what your mom or the culture or your friends tell you. You've got it. I mean, I know it's hard. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I've written what I've written for all these years. Is the way we set it up is awful, and we're setting women up to fail. And if I could change the system, I would.
We're trying.
Or try. Lord knows I have tried for years to like make this bigger cultural statement. But at the end of the day, whether the culture changes or not, if you come to me and you want something, here are the steps to get there. And that's going to be more effective than changing the culture. So what do you want? Name it, own it. That's important. Name it, own it. Know there's nothing wrong with it. Ignore everybody else around you, and then go out in the world and be 100% authentic about what it is you want. And don't be afraid to say it. Mm-hmm. If you scare somebody away, that is good. That doesn't mean it's not working and you should stop being authentic. It means you're on the right track and you're that much closer to finding someone who does. I think people would be surprised at how, one thing I've learned is that when people start saying things that are not PC, things that you're not used to hearing, there's like this sigh of relief from the person on the other end. So you talked about scaring away certain people. Will there be those people? Sure, absolutely. This goes for man or woman, by the way. But just try it. And I bet you'll be surprised at how many people will be like, oh, it's so great to hear somebody say that. I thought I'd never hear that.
Or, I can't believe you said that. And then the process.
Yes. And that's been my experience that that's more common than the people who run away and say, well, you're nuts. Actually, my experience has been, not just my personal experience, but what I've learned from people who are bold enough to do this is they run into fewer people who are like, screw you and run away, than they are like, oh, wow. I'm so glad somebody said that. That's what I want.
But these girls, so I don't have the impression that it's that they're not honest about what they want. They are so confused. There are all these questions. So they'll say, oh, but won't it be like this? Right? So they'll sit there and they'll be, they know that, deep down, I want a family, and deep down, I probably should. But won't I lose all of my progression? Won't I lose my identity? There'll be all these fears. So a lot of the times it's the woman holding back, whereas the man would, probably say, yeah, sure, let's get married and have a family, whatever you want, as they very often say, whatever you want. And it's the woman who has all these questions.
Sure. Because they've been groomed.
Some of those, because I know you've talked about this identity crisis. You've talked about some of these fears and the confusion women sit with.
So again, it goes back to that question: what do you want at the end of the day? I mean, you have to almost walk somebody through it. So what do you want? Well, I'd really like to stay home and just have like 4 kids. And maybe I'll go back to work. Maybe I won't. Or maybe I'll do something different and work from home, or, whatever. Then you walk through the fear. So what about that scares you? I mean, we could even do it right now if you wanted to. I mean, what would they say if I said, okay, so that's what you want. What are you afraid of?
So I've done this so many times. It would be... There's just, this is the reason behind Psychobabble. It's all these poor women who are confused and stuck. So it would be losing myself and losing myself and autonomy.
Okay, so let's just stop here.
Like themselves would just run away. They'll never find themselves again.
So let's just start with that. First of all, that assumes that one finds themselves when they're solo, when they're single, when they're by themselves in the pursuit of a career and just living that life, that's how you find yourself. When in reality, in my opinion, it's through marriage and children where you actually find your true self. Because you have to be in relationship with other people to get to that core of who you are. You can't, it's almost impossible to do that by yourself. I mean, how are you growing by just going to work and coming home and eating your dinner and going to, watching TV and getting up every day and doing it again and going out on Saturday night? I mean, that's not how you find yourself. You have to suffer. Right. You have to sacrifice. You have to be in relationship. You have to give up some needs in favor of those around you to grow as a human being. You don't grow by just living for yourself. It just doesn't work that way. So the whole mindset that they have around this finding yourself is wrong from the get-go. So I would start there with just like sort of imploding that whole
Yeah.
theory they've had their whole lives. That's one thing. But not only will you come out on the other end of, having found yourself down the road, but I think there needs to be more understanding of what sacrifice gets you, which is a deeper,
Right.
more meaningful life. We're so materialistic, so money focused, so self focused, as though that life is somehow superior, or I don't know what the word is, but it's not meaningful.
Right.
Uh,
But women are told, and these women have been told, that sacrificing themselves is a purely bad thing. This
Correct.
word sacrifice, they'll be like,
Right.
oh, but I don't want to do that. And it's important to sort of know, okay, I'm talking about women in affluent liberal areas here. That's
Mm-hmm.
from where I have my experience. They will have lived there the whole of their 20s and sometimes many years into their 30s. They have money. They've been making their own money. They've been traveling whenever they want to with whomever they want. They can go out. They look great. They're taking care of themselves. It's the life. And so they're terrified of giving that up. And then they see mothers struggling. They're
Mm-hmm.
bombarded online with all this like, oh, having kids is so difficult, and it's so difficult this, and you don't have any autonomy, and when are you going to do this, and I can't do my nails anymore. This is not hyperbole. I see it myself. These
Mm-hmm.
articles are everywhere, and every time I read them, oh, that is
So
not how it is to be a mother.
no. And so then that gets into a question about social media and lifestyle. So how are you living your life? If you are spending it on social media, and let's face it, if you're not married with kids, you probably are on social media. Not that people who are married with kids aren't on social media, but you're not as concerned with the outside world and comparing yourself as much, in my opinion, if you're happy at home. Now, if you're not happy at home, if your marriage is bad or your kids are a mess or whatever, then you might. But if you throw yourself into a solid marriage and family life, you really don't care about what's going on in the outside world. You shouldn't, because that's where you're going to find your true meaning. Um, if it's healthy and it's good,
Right.
and
Yeah.
now, so then you have to take stock of the role of social media plays in your life, and truly understanding that social media is a facade. It's false, it's fake, it's not real. It's giving you a picture of something for 2 seconds, and you do not see the reality of that, whatever that is you're seeing, which can be dark or ugly or difficult or time consuming or whatever it is. It's not real. And so
Yeah.
you are allowing yourself to be swayed by images. It's kind of like being constantly in a movie. Like it used to be back in the day, you'd go to a movie for 2 hours and you'd like escape your reality, right? With some beautiful people or some beautiful images or some beautiful, now it's like you're constantly bombarded with that. I mean, I really feel very strongly about social media, and I can't even imagine having grown up with that, or my kids didn't grow up with that. I mean, it's really, now they are.
Yeah.
And it's so destructive
Yeah, I'm
for
terrified,
happiness and
Suzanne.
contentment.
Terrified.
It's just
Yeah.
bad.
They're being given the idea that they have a lot to lose. Just also because I do think it's worth just mentioning how they're told that motherhood is, and they see mothers struggling with kids that have been in daycare, or not the same kind of kids that
Hmm.
are raised by stay-at-home moms.
Hmm.
So they do see a lot of stress, a lot of unhappy, whiny kids, and moms who have that sort of, and they just see how that would be their life, because they would obviously want to work. They would obviously try to keep whatever they can from the life that they currently have. So 30 and working, and they would try to
Yeah.
hold on, because that's what they
Yeah.
associate with the good
Hmm.
life and good mental
Hmm.
health, and
Hmm.
that. So they don't want to do that complete transformation that
No,
would
they
give
don't.
that better life. And I just think, how can we get them through to see.
Well, that's funny. That example is the exact opposite of what I said in terms of social media. It's the reverse side. So some people see something lovely and think
Mhm.
that that's real, even though they're not seeing the ugly behind it. And what you just said was the opposite. They're seeing the ugly of motherhood and they're not seeing the whole world behind it that's beautiful, that's not coming through. Although there are some reels I think that do show it, which is, and I always try to emphasize those when they come up.
Yeah, but
The,
that's because you and me were sort of in the trad and community.
oh, okay.
So we'll see those reels,
Okay.
but
Got
that
it.
won't
Okay.
be like if you look at articles and even the Atlantic, they're having like mothers are regretting
Oh, yeah.
children,
That's
they're
been,
regretting, like that's been going on for years. And you go to Psychology Today, and it's just like mothers are so lonely now, and mental health of mothers, and 40% of women in burnout and all that. So I think that that's what there's. This is my future as a mother, so I have to hold on
yeah.
to all the good things that I have now. And then this question of work-life balance and autonomy and not
I
losing
think so.
myself.
Honing on my book, but that's the reason why I wrote that book
Yeah,
early this year. Is that it's basically a guide to completely changing the way you think, that you've been taught to think about work, family, career, womanhood, all of it. It's a different map than the one you've been given. So when you ask me, what do you tell these people? Well, I got so frustrated after a while. I'm like, I'm just going to create this map, this roadmap that says, forget everything you've been told and everything you see. Here's the way to get where you want to get. And it's a completely different way of how you look at men, women, marriage, motherhood, work. It's not an either or. It's not a trad wife, go that extreme, and it's not the working mother all the time life. It's what I think is a beautiful middle ground, and a doable life that I think a lot of women lead, but they're too busy leading them to. They're not on the extreme ends, and so you don't hear from them. But they're quietly making it work. And I'd like to think I'm one of those. I mean, I feel like I am. I feel like my life has been that way, and so I wanted to show, hey, here's another way. Here's your answer, so to speak, to what
yeah,
it is you're looking for.
right. Because you're very good at sort of pivoting, I would say, like you just
Mhm.
said before, right? You're saying, okay, I need more time for this now, then I'll
Mhm.
focus more here and sort of flow. And
Yeah,
your work is also able to facilitate that.
that is true. But
That's a
there's
very
a
good
lot of things.
quality.
Yeah, but a lot of people would say that most jobs can't be done that way, and that's true. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. I work from home. I'm a writer.
Hmm.
That's not something that has to conflict in some major way with motherhood. Although it did at times, and you're right. I did pivot and make choices all along the way with my one priority in mind. So
Hmm.
that goes back to what I said before: is what do you want? Do you want a life focused on family? I mean, really focused on family. Like that's the core of your lifestyle, and then everything else revolves around it. Or do you want the reverse of that, which is what women are taught: is your career's your core, and men and babies and children kind of orbit around it. And the whole purpose of my book is to reverse that. So don't pick
Yeah,
it up if you don't want this life, because this is about family at the core. Work
yeah,
comes is orbits around that, and
yeah.
that's a complete. And of course, a lot of people will say, "Well, that's going to cut out a lot of careers." I'm like, "Yep." So then
Yeah,
it's not
so
for
can
you.
we get into that? What have you told your children on how to get that? How do when because I'm approached by young girls, I haven't even reached
Mhm.
20, some of them, saying like, "Oh, should I study medicine? I really want to study medicine."
Yep.
And I tell them, "Don't do that.
Yeah.
No." Like
Yeah.
someone needs to sit you down and count the
Yes.
years, like, right? It's gonna
Yep.
take you 13 years, and then even then
So yeah,
you're never finished.
if I had had a daughter who wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer for that matter, although there are aspects of those roles that you can actually do on a part-time basis, from what I understand. But if somebody wanted to be a full-on, you know, doctor or lawyer, I shouldn't say someone. If my daughter had wanted to, which she didn't, I would have said, I have no doubt that you can accomplish that. And that sounds very ambitious. What else, if anything, do you want? Is that, and this goes back to what I said. This
What else
goes
is
back.
there?
This goes back to what I said about what do you want and what do you want the core of your life to be. If it's so hard for me to imagine this because my daughter's a first grade teacher and she plans on being a stay-at-home mom, so I can't get my head around this for her.
Good for
But
you. Well
yeah.
done.
Well, I know. I mean, I didn't tell her to do that, but I was a teacher originally, and so she certainly had a model for
Right.
family at the center and work orbiting, and so it was probably pretty natural for her. But if she had said that, I would have said, "Okay, that's great. You can accomplish that. I have no doubt. What else do you want? What kind of life do you want? What?" And if she said, "Well, I want 4 children too," let's just say she said that,
Okay.
and then I'd start laughing. And I'd be like, "Okay, so how is this going to work logistically?" And then I'd walk her through not the theory of it or the politics of it, but the reality of it, the logistics of it. I'm not concerned with politics. I'm not concerned with making a statement to the world about what you're capable of. I'm concerned with your happiness and what you want, what kind of life you want, and how to build it so that you can have it. That's all I care about. I don't care about making a statement about women or men or anything. I just want you to have what you want. And for most women, it's family at the core and everything else around it. I believe that. I believe that even though it doesn't look that way, because I believe women are being groomed to be men and have been, and they don't realize that they don't want those lives until the nesting stage hits. And that's when they call me and say, "What the hell?"
Yes, the rude awakening of
Rude
like
awakening.
31. It happens a bit later now. 31, 32.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
then
that's because
they're stuck.
nobody had the courage to say it's okay to build a life differently than a man does. It's okay. You're not supposed to prove you're capable of doing anything a man can do, which is how this whole thing started. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's become economic now. I mean, now the whole 2 incomes, like now it's gone on for so long that the GDP rose as women went into the workforce en masse. So we've created this lifestyle that does command 2 incomes. So now the conversation is very financial, but it didn't start out that way. That's not how this whole thing began. It began about identity and proving yourself and all this.
Yes. You
stuff.
can do anything you set your mind to. You can do anything you want. You can, which is also not true. And I think we're doing them a disservice. Anyone,
to not tell the truth.
Our sons as well. When we say, they should look what they have aptitude for.
So that's another thing
their
that talent
lies.
People want to know about, like, let's say you take that same question you just asked me and what I tell my son, because I have a son, and they're very interested in, like, so do you teach your son differently than you do your, yes and no. Certainly I believe in treating sons differently than daughters in a whole host of ways. But as far as this work family thing goes, our son got the equal message. I'm not sure that's the right word for me, but got the same message that family comes first. So he's always also thinking, like, for example, right now he's like, he's about to graduate from college and he's like, I'm just going to go hog wild for 5 years so that I don't have to go so has hog wild on year, 10, although it's not typically that simple. But anyway, the mindset is there, so that's fine. But in addition to that same message of family first, they both also understand that there's a big difference between a man earning and a woman earning once the children come along. So they've heard a whole lot about that. That's not interchangeable. And that's not, the mom being the breadwinner is not the same as the dad being a breadwinner and all the complications that go with that. So they've heard that messaging as well. So it's kind of, it really doesn't have to be an either or. I think that's the thing that's so frustrating for me is I feel that I am very much about the middle ground, the common sense middle ground, that it's none of this stuff has to be so extreme. It's not women never work or they do. It's not, it's just not as cut and dried as it's made out to be. And so you can send a message of family first to both children while also acknowledging that a male breadwinner and a female breadwinner, once children come along, is not the same.
Right. So do you have any when it comes to degrees or types of work, like we mentioned, primary school teacher, other suggestions where you've seen like this works really well because it's changed also
Say that
how
again.
we work. And so do you have any concrete suggestions for women who might have this question, if they're 19, what should I go and study? We mentioned primary school teaching.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah, sure. Find a career that is, number one, hands down, flexible. It can be done from home. It can be done on a part-time basis. You can move in and out of it easily because the need is always there. Teaching and nursing are
mhm,
the obvious. But today, with um, the internet and working from and the computer and life on a computer, the sky's really the limit on what you can do from home. I mean, let's face it.
yeah,
It's not like the old days. There are so many more options for mothers in particular via the computer that just flat out didn't exist 20, 30 years ago. So I think it's a great time to find that flexible career as a mother. Yeah, I'd say that's really the main thing. Something that allows you to again go back to that orbiting around your life rather than becoming your life. Because invariably, if you get on this track, it takes 10 years to get where you want to get, and then all of a sudden your clock's ticking and you're going to be in a pickle. So why would I put you in that pickle? Now, at the
yeah,
very least, if you had that desire and that's what you want to do, I wouldn't say don't do it, but I would say you're going to 10 years from now you are going to be really struggling. So
yeah,
you have to decide, going back to my question, what do you want? It
yeah,
really does come down to that. What kind of life do you want? Lifestyle, I mean, like on a daily basis, what do you want that to look like? Who
yeah.
do you want around you? How are you going to make that work? A big thing used to be, I remember my mom, I was in the 80s when I was in college, and I was married before. I think you knew that. Married 4 years, no kids, divorced, remarried 3 years later, have two kids. But when he and I were together, there was a conversation about, well, Suzanne's going to want to be near her family when she has children because we weren't geographically aligned. Let's put it that way. Because I went to school away from home. And nobody talks about that anymore. Nobody would dare say that. Well, now you're dealing with women who are like getting into these because no one told them that or would say that to them. They find themselves 10 years down the road having created a life where they are somewhere far away from home. They have
That's
children, they
so
have no
funny. That
help.
is exactly my situation. Is that I was thinking about that before when we were in the middle of the other topic, when we're talking about what we're telling our kids, what we're talking about, and we have surveys now telling us that that is what parents are focusing on. They're
Mm-hmm.
focusing
Mm-hmm.
something like 80, more than
Mm-hmm.
80% are saying career,
Career,
financial
career, career.
independence
Yep.
is the most important, and
Most important thing.
10%
Yep.
are talking about family. And I'm sorry, mom and dad, if you're listening, but you should have told me how bloody difficult it is to have three kids and not be around a single family member. I mean, thank God my husband is helping out a lot, and now he's with the kids, and so I can do this. And but it is so, I'd never imagined how difficult it is to be
Yes. And
without
I hear that over and over.
grandparents.
And I have to tell you,
Never.
I had unusual parents and a mom who would say this. And I remember even my ex-husband at the time just, he probably never heard that, of course, either. But I wasn't raised the way you just described at all. And so I got the practical advice, and I'm convinced that's why it worked for me. I didn't
Yeah,
have these struggles that young women have today. I didn't have this
yeah,
conflict. I didn't have this guilt. I didn't have this stress. I mean, I created a life based on countercultural advice,
yeah,
and it worked. And I believe that people can do that. It's not just something that happened to me and aren't I lucky? And
yeah.
no, it's that
It does
you
matter
have,
what parents tell, what we talk
yes,
about, how we
yes.
tell. So, you see, uh, you see all these grandparents picking up their kids from school. See me standing here every day. That's, it's there's a lot of things, just the hour to go, and when you're
Mhm.
sick. Oh, Suzanne, when I'm sick.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine, Hannah. I cannot even imagine.
Everyone just had the the stomach flu a week ago.
I mean, it really pains
Yeah,
me because what bothers me about it is that it really was not. always. It's not like it's going to work 100% for everybody, but these really are preventable problems.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody had just given them the right information. My podcast producer is in the same boat as you are, and she's now, her mom just moved to live near her and her husband,
Oh,
and it's a
I'm
game
happy for
changer,
her.
of course. So that
Yeah.
worked out for her, but she struggled for a
Yeah.
while in the same way, and it's like that's what's the most frustrating about all the coaching, is seeing that so many of these things were preventable if they'd just been given different information. And again, that goes back to why I wrote the How to Build a Better Life book, because I'm basically passing on the information that I got that worked, that is totally countercultural.
Yeah, it's not just the physical help, it's the emotional, as what
Yes.
women need. That's also not what women need. We need community. We need our families more than I see the men need their family. Just the coming over to
Yes.
have a cup of
Yes.
coffee with your
Because
mom, or going
yes.
for Sunday dinner, just that you have that, because we are so lonely, and we're lonely with our
Mhm.
babies. And so of
Mhm.
course we want to go back to work because we're
Of
sitting here
course.
all alone.
Of course. And you're not
Yeah.
supposed to raise your children by yourself. And we tried to think that that daycare could replace grandma and our families, and it doesn't work that way. So yes, women had more help back in the day, but it was family help, not stranger hired help. And you're not meant to do it alone. It's not something to do alone. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of a mess. And again, why weren't women told that? Is, you're not supposed to acknowledge that women need that more than men, because, oh my gosh, that means you're not the same. All
Yeah.
these things are rooted in some fear of not
Yeah.
saying something because it's not PC. And one of them
Right.
is that men and women are different.
Yes, I wanted to ask you how you prepared, how you helped your daughter prepare now for this, for her upcoming nuptials, for
Oh,
the marriage she's entering into. Can you tell us
um,
something about what have you talked to her about, going into it, advice? What can we take from you?
there are no sit downs, um, mostly because of what I do for a living. She has been bombarded with relationship stuff, marriage stuff, motherhood stuff, work stuff, ever since she can remember. So if anything, I try not to say anything, because she could
Mm,
not be more clear on, everything that the average woman wasn't told. I guarantee you she was told. If she wasn't, or modeled or read in the book, because she's
mhm.
read my books. So she's either read them, she's seen it modeled, she's seen me make a comment if we're watching TV about something. She's so inundated. There have been no sit
With the-
downs. She's very clear.
Okay.
So she was just basically, she was not raised the way other people were, and I think the way other women were, and I think what makes that hard for her, as someone who's not like me, she likes to go along to get along. She doesn't like to stir the pot.
Mm,
She What makes it hard for her is that she's so super clear. I don't know how to say this in a way that doesn't make her sound great or something, but she's so clear on the whys of everything. She's so knowledgeable about the countercultural ways, but she's aware that it is, and she doesn't like to be countercultural. So I've put her in a hard position. Good for her personal life and her choices, but hard for her friendship, her world, her relationships with people, because
interaction.
she doesn't want to get into it. If
Right.
that makes
She's
sense.
very agreeable. So
She's
she doesn't want to
agreeable.
have the conflict.
She's very agreeable, but
Yeah.
she knows what she wants based on
Yeah.
information they don't have that she got.
Right.
She's doing it according to yeah, isn't that
Amazing.
interesting?
Good
Same
for
with my
her.
son, really.
Right. But they're not in a conservative environment where you
Well, she
live?
is now. She's in Texas.
Oh,
So I
yes,
think
that would help.
actually,
That would
I
help.
think I think going there was very helpful, actually.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to deal with it so much. If she had gone up on the East Coast like I
Yeah,
did,
no.
I can't
Oh,
even imagine what she'd have to deal with. So that's
yeah.
good. And my son could give a poop what people think. So he doesn't care
So
if he's
that's
different.
easier. That's just an easier
That's
life
easy.
when you're just, yeah. Um, yes. I did want to, because when we're talking about, because you lived by example. You taught by example. That's what I wanted to say. You taught by example. That's why you didn't need any of these sit downs. And so just this one problem that I didn't want to get to. One thing is teaching the women differently and having them live better lives. But what some of them report to me that they're experiencing is that even if they would want to go that traditional way, their husbands don't, because they
Yeah.
have been raised by working mothers.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your take on that? And have you had any experience with that, where it's the husband who sort of says, yeah, quite like
Um,
going 50-50 and not having the whole responsibility, and I'm not the whole provide 100% type.
so I do have some experience with that, and um, it's an added component to what young couples thinking about getting married have to contend with that we didn't back in the day. There's no
Mm-hmm.
question. So what I always say to people is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how your parents did it or how yours or his or hers did it. What matters is that you both agree on where you're going and what you want. There's plenty of people who were raised a certain way and don't want to repeat it. And then there's people who were raised a certain way and want to repeat it because they liked it or whatever. You have to think, keep coming back to this. What do you want? Irrespective of what your parents did or what the culture tells you to do or what your friends say to do, as long as you and he or you and she are on the same page about how to build this life
Mm-hmm.
and what you want it to look like, you're good. So for those women who are up against men, to use your example, who want them to work when they don't, that's not your person. That is not your person. That is that first of all, you're simply not agreeing on the basis of what your life is going to look like. If he wants you to be employed and you don't,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a match.
And if they are
If she,
married already, and
oh
then because
yeah,
the problem is, right, the women
yeah,
they don't anticipate that change is going to happen for them
yes,
if they're
that's
already
true.
career women, and then
Okay,
that they become a mother, and it's this tidal wave. Ooh,
that's true. That
everything
is true.
matters in a different way now, and I don't want to go back to work at all.
So I'm not going to lie, that's super tricky, especially if you've set it up with the assumption that you'll always be in the workforce and then you change your mind and you didn't make financial decisions with your husband based on one income instead of two, which is what you should have done. And you just don't bank on it.
Mm.
I mean, so at that point, you are looking at a sit down. I mean, no TV, no kids, no phones. You are sitting down for several hours at a table and you're saying, I don't want this life. Here's why, and here's what I want instead. And for the specific example you use with the woman dealing with the man, because sometimes it's the reverse. The man would want it and the woman doesn't.
Yeah.
The man might want her to stay home, although I have to say men are less likely to verbalize that, unfortunately, than women are. But do the math for your husband, because if you are talking several children and you're talking daycare, the best way to get him to understand is math. I mean, men are math mostly, usually,
Yeah.
very practical, math minded. Show him that it doesn't come out in the wash financially, and he will most likely get on board for X amount of years until the kids are in school. So that's a very specific example.
Yeah, so you shorten the time. It's not
It's not.
endless. So yeah, it's not
Oh yeah, so
open-ended.
that's the other
Yeah.
thing. Again, you mentioned at the beginning, like people want a more traditional life. Again, the traditional life doesn't mean you're never employed. It's very important. Again, we're not talking about trad wife versus the way the culture does it. It's get real specific here. It's you're out of the workforce for X amount of years with your youngins, your littles. Then they're in school. Maybe you go back part time.
Mm.
When they're older, maybe you go back full time. I mean, that's an ideal situation. But the point is not that you're in or out. It's that you're flexible and you're moving around creating a home and raising your own kids as opposed to farming that out.
Mm.
You might also have to explain to him not just the math, but also the significance of those early years, because the average guy, I mean, let's face it, the average woman doesn't even know.
That's it.
You're
That's
not,
it.
no one knows. So
No
you
one
got to
knows.
introduce him to Erica Komisar,
Exactly. Read this.
and you've got, right?
Yeah.
And
Why mothers matter.
you've got to present the evidence. Maybe you have a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are good.
They
Men
love
like
that as
spreadsheets.
well. They love
What?
that. They love the spreadsheets.
They love the spreadsheets. So give them the research and the math. And then hopefully, if you are telling him your heart's desire and he loves you, it's kind of a concern if he's like, no, after all of that. I mean, I would be more concerned about your marriage at that point than anything else, because you shouldn't respond, you're going back to work. I mean, that's not.
But it's a lot of, I do see men in this, I live in Zurich, it's a very, and they are very used to having their materialistic, it's very status driven. These men are, it's important to them which car they drive. It's important that they can go on vacations and afford Club Med hotels. It's important that they sort of can go on all the skiing vacations with all the friends and I see men for whom this is very important, that they are able to keep up with the Joneses.
But see, that alone, that's why it's really, at the end of the day, not about the staying home or even the math. It's about, what do you want? What do you value? If you and your spouse's values align, like if I were married to somebody like that, I would struggle, because those aren't my values. And it would constantly come up, not just with staying home, but with any money, going back to what we were starting to say about never coming together to talk about money. That's the kind of stuff it brings up. If you have somebody who wants more of a simple life, with somebody who wants an extravagant one, that's not a match. And so it's really about matching your values. And if you can't do that, you are going to struggle in your marriage. It'll either end, or you'll just live separate lives in the same house. I mean, you've got to share the values.
You'll have more than one kid.
Because a person who has, for example, the couple that has the same values, that man hears that she wants to stay home, he'll do backflips to make it work. For her to be able to do that, and then to maybe get on a second job for X amount of years, or whatever is needed to create this larger life that they both want. It's when you're not aligned that the conflict ensues.
But I do encounter this opposite problem. I thought, we just need to get the women to understand that there's a change and they're going to need, and then more and more this comes up. But he doesn't want that.
It's in the book to get on this ahead of time.
Get the book, and go to Suzanne's Substack. There's always, I'm sure that you'll encounter the questions that you've been thinking about at night there, and have a sit down. If you're in the situation where you're stuck, have a sit down, no phones. And I thought that was great. What do you want? What do you want?
And what are the steps to get there?
And with your spouse. If you don't have a shared goal, then forget about it. Then go back, start from scratch, and just define that goal.
And hopefully, if you're already married and you missed the boat on that before you got married, hopefully that both people want the marriage to succeed enough that they're just willing to do a deep dive and change the plan. I mean, at that point, that's the thing about marriage. I mean, once you get into it, especially if you have kids, that's what kids do. They're your glue. It's not about, romance and flowers. It's about the family. And if you have children, then you have a reason to stay together. People think that's such a bad thing. Back in the day, we just never stay together for the sake of the kids. Well, why the hell not? I think that's a great reason to stay together. That's why they're there. Unless it's that horrible.
You used to be allowed to say. You used to be allowed to say that you were together for the kids. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Awesome, Hannah. Nice to talk to you again.
I hope everyone listening got something from this. Again, go to SuzanneVenker.com and Suzanne Venker's Substack. I'll add links in the description. It's really worth it. I hope you enjoy your holiday season and come back next year for more Psychobabble. And please like and subscribe. Have a nice day.